Good morning. Hi, friends. Happy Wednesday, actually. It's been a crazy week so far, so had to rearrange a few things and record on a Wednesday. I worked out this morning. My homegirl, Katie, thought it was a good idea to have me run on inclines very early this morning, followed by a lot of squats and a lot of kettlebells. I'm already feeling quite sore. I also have a ton of endorphins swimming around my brain, so I'm going to try not to speed talk my way through today's episode. For those of you that are tuning in for maybe the first time, hello. My name is Libby, and welcome to my audio journal, Finding Joy in the Shadows, where I spend time each week talking about the fun curveballs life throws our way and help us look for pockets of joy. This is also an opportunity for me to continue working through my own stuff, while also sharing ways to help anyone who might be listening work through some things in your life that need some tweaking so that we all can find joy together. For today's discussion, I promised a more upbeat tone compared to last week's episode. Again, sorry about that. So for today, we are going to focus on the importance of counting our blessings and exploring the power of gratitude. But before we get started, let's spend a few minutes catching up on some LPs that crossed my radar last week. If anyone has started listening to my little podcast experiment at night, and I don't know, maybe you started a drinking game where you take a shot every time I mention BTS. Well, if you are, time to fill up the glass because here it comes. It's official. Jin from BTS has returned from his mandatory military service, and he has wasted no time in reconnecting with his fans. The day after his discharge, those that were able to snag a lucky golden ticket from the Weverse drawing were treated to a special event where he performed songs. He legit hugged all 1,000 attendees one by one, and he even wore a really cute sign that said, "Hug me." He ate a meal in front of everyone because that's his shtick. And he took on the Seven Dance Challenge from JK's song Seven. An hour after he left the military, he tried doing one of those live sessions I mentioned a few pods ago, and Homeboy legit crashed the site. Not once, but twice. Millions and millions of people all were trying to hop on this one little site all at the same time. And that poor app just didn't stand a chance. So finally, they had to schedule a webinar style event to accommodate everyone. And they sent out a notice of when to actually log on. And that's how I learned of this because I received that notification. I unfortunately was not able to watch live. I know, I'm sorry. I had work obligations. Please don't revoke my status as baby army. I'm sorry. I did enjoy all of the uploads and the reaction videos though. So thank you to everyone who uploaded those. As a new member to this fandom, seeing all seven members together for the first time, and this time seeing them as a fan myself was very touching. Namjoon shared a very sweet picture of all of them together, and I have to say, it was a relief to finally catch a glimpse of my bias Suga. Homeboy is taking the "see you in 2025" a little too seriously, and has not been seen since he enlisted back in September. So unlike other members like V, who was recently photographed looking quite handsome, wearing his all black SWAT style uniform, or J Hope when he showed up at a pop up stand celebrating the release of his second solo album that came out recently, Suga has maintained a very low profile. Probably because of him serving out his duty through community service rather than the traditional military route. For those of you that probably don't know, but I'm certainly you want to know more now. Suga sustained a pretty serious shoulder injury right before the group debuted 11 years ago. And he never told anyone, never had it looked at. He just suffered through in silence in with this constant pain. He did all that dancing for so many years until eventually his shoulder legit gave out and required major surgery. So I think that I think it took place in 2020, but I'm not entirely sure. But unfortunately, that did affect his military service options and forced him to opt for the more community service route instead. His hair is really, really short right now. And he was introduced to me with really long hair. So I do miss it. I know it will grow back, but I will say I do kind of like the short hair too. So he's versatile. He can wear both. He's still very, very adorable. So that was my BTS news. Um, I saw two more iconic movies from my childhood are getting a remake. No pressure, but these just happen to be two movies that I feel changed the trajectory of women's lives. So no pressure. Um, I was a little hesitant when I first read about these, but I think these have the potential to be really, really good remakes. Jennifer Aniston is working on an updated version to the cult classic 9 to 5. And Selena Gomez is rumored to be taking on the role of Tess McGill from Working Girl. So, like I said, these were two extremely massively popular movies that changed the trajectory of working women. So, again, no pressure. I will say though that these movies they did help change the debate women faced at that time in the professional world. And I don't think I would have the opportunities available to me today if either of these movies hadn't been made. So I'm hopeful. I wish them all the best in updating these stories and adding more voices to the conversation. I will say, I my fears were certainly relieved when I saw that Dolly Parton herself and Sigourney Weaver have each given their blessing. So if the Queen approves it, I'm not gonna stand up against that. So I'm all for it and I support it as well. I did see that Liam Neeson is going to be trading in his tough guy roles to take on Leslie Nielsen's character from the Naked Gun series. And I'm very interested to see how that comes out. It's apparently it's supposed to come out next summer. And I think it'll be really funny to see someone who is very serious, kind of scary, take on a more slapstick comedy role. So I'm very open to how that one will come out. So three movies from the childhood, two iconic. Um, we'll see how they turn out. I was flipping through the new Us Weekly the other day, and I saw an interview with the cast of for Bravo's upcoming Ladies of Dubai season two. And it kind of irked me because the very first question that the interviewer asked was, which of the ladies bring the most drama? And I was like, really? Us Weekly? That was my first thought was, really? Second was most of these women have their own careers, professions. One even holds a doctorate in business from Eton. And that was the first question. Who's bringing the most drama? And I get it, right? That's Bravo's formula. So I get it, but it just I don't know. It irked me. Um I think just with the whole Real Housewives, the whole ladies of wherever, I, I'm kind of over it. Like I was intrigued by Ladies of Dubai because I saw Carolyn Stanberry was starring it, and I really liked her in Ladies of London. But I got to be honest, after a few minutes of watching the series, I no longer have the stomach for that level of drama, even if it's scripted or and not real. Um, Anyone else done with screaming matches for entertainment? Just me? I don't know. It feels like everyone just wants to shout at people these days or shout over people. And it just feels like everybody is just so angry these days and they just want to rage for the sake of raging. And I do not have any more room in my head for it. I will admit, I too laughed at the people on the Jerry Springer show back in the 90s when screaming matches and conflict for ratings was a novelty. But now we're so numb to watching people berate and scream at one another. It's just like another Tuesday. If we look at where we are in society today, there is zero civility around the world, zero civility amongst our leaders, like legit non existent, um, especially within the social media sphere. So I will say my heart, my brain, my stomach has zero room for it anymore. So I'm wishing these ladies the best of luck with their new season, but I'm going to be watching something else. Speaking of drama, though, drama that doesn't involve screaming matches yet, I have an update to the Us Weekly article that was titled A New Feud Explodes that I talked about a few weeks ago. This is for you, Jesse. because you were genuinely intrigued a few weeks ago when I initially talked about this story. So, quick backstory for anyone who might not know. Um, I read this article a few weeks ago in Us Weekly, and it was all from Crystal Hefner's perspective. And she was sharing her thoughts and feelings about an interview that Holly Madison and Bridget Marcourt conducted on their podcast, The Girls Next Level, with one of Hef's sons, Marston. At the time I read the article, my annoyance or my beef was really with the author. I felt they were trying, they weren't even trying to do investigative journalism. And in my opinion, I just found it really frustrating because at no point did they interview anyone else to bring in another perspective to these accusations or stories. And I thought it was really weird until I heard last week's episode of Holly and Bridget's podcast. During their intro, they spilled some very interesting truths and helped explain why I felt this whole interview was so strange. According to Holly and Bridget, while Crystal has been sharing her story and experience, which I have been listening to, her story has apparently been changing. As soon as her details get challenged, she changes up her story. So I thought that was a very interesting detail. Holly and Bridget, they didn't dive too far into things, but based on what they share, um, it sounded like they had some receipts. And if you listen to their podcast, you will hear them reference their old scrapbooks all the time. So it's clear to anyone listening to them, they've pretty much documented almost every minute of their time during that era. So I do tend to believe them. Again, I will admit, I am a fan of their show. I listen to their pod. So one could say I'm a bit biased, maybe. But I thought it was an interesting update and I wanted to share. So stay tuned for more to come. Speaking of interesting details, I thought this was very cool. Voyager 1 came back to life after being offline for 7 months. Didn't know it had been offline for a while, but it had been offline for 7 months, and NASA finally brought it back. Thanks to a dedicated team of engineers, NASA says it is once again receiving data from the Gen X spacecraft. And when I read that, it kind of made me giggle because, you know, could you imagine being a fly on the wall in those IT troubleshooting meetings? Because someone's had to have suggested this. Well, did we try turning it off and turning it back on again? Because that's the universal go-to fix for anything technology related, right? So I don't know if that's what did the trick, but they were able to get it back online. And just reading about the mission, I was reminded about a lot of things, but then I learned some new things. Little history lesson or refresher for maybe some. The Voyager 1 was launched in 1977, along with its twin Voyager 2. And these two spacecrafts have been taking us on a grand tour of the solar system and sending us back some of the most amazing images. Both of the spacecrafts got up close and personal with Jupiter and Saturn. Voyager 2 has since flown by Uranus and Neptune. And according to the Star Tribune article I read, gravitational slingshots from planetary encounters are sending Voyager 1 on an elliptical path, while Voyager 2 is now headed in the opposite direction. They said Voyager 1 is now hurtling towards the Ophiuchus, I don't know if I'm saying that right, the Ophiuchus constellation. And in about, 38,000 years, will come within 1.7 light years to one of the stars that currently make up our Little Dipper. I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, we will not be here when that happens, but that's where it's headed. Both spacecrafts contain a golden disk that was curated by the famous astronomer Carl Sagan. It features greetings in 55 languages, along with sounds of surf, wind, thunderstorm, a whale song, music ranging from Beethoven to Chuck Berry to a Navajo chant. And I thought it was pretty incredible. I mean, when you think about it, the natural sounds of Earth will be considered signs of life to another life form that may intersect one of these spacecrafts. I thought that was pretty interesting. And it reminded me of something I saw on the socials where it said humans are prepared for NASA to discover aliens that look nothing like us, but we haven't considered the possibility of finding other humans elsewhere in the galaxy. Yeah, that's going to stay with you for a little while. You're welcome. Last week was just a very heartwarming week for my heart, my soul, my cup. I had the pleasure of spending time with another one of my dear sorority sisters, Shawnee, and her husband, Mark. Quick backstory. when I pivoted from teaching to sales, I started working for a tech company where I met Mark. Always loved meetings where I could talk to Mark. He's just funny, kind, and overall just a really good person. But I had no idea he was married to my friend slash sorority sister, Shawnee, for almost like 2 years. I never made the connection, but I love how the universe shows us just how small we truly are. Anyway, they invited me to join them at the Reach for Ralph annual benefit dinner. Shawnee's company was one of the sponsors to the event. And like I said, not only was last week just very heartwarming for me, but this dinner just it was a very sweet evening and very honored that I was able to be a participant at it. Um, the main offices to the Hammer and Nerve organization, which was putting on the Reach for Ralph dinner, their offices are so close to where I live. I've driven past them countless times, but I really didn't know much about the organization that was inside. Um, Hammer and Nerve's mission is to provide people with intellectual and other disabilities the opportunity to live life to their fullest. Alvina Hammer, she founded the first Hammer School in the 1920s, and I love this. She started it because she wanted to focus on abilities rather than disabilities, and that just gives me the goosebumps and warm feels. Over the years, they have grown to support both children and they continue to support them as they grow into adulthood and old age, offering independent living opportunities. And they continue to advocate for their needs as they, like I said, continue to get older. Um, it was very heartwarming. If anyone has a family member that has special needs, you can relate to one of these women's stories that they shared at the event where she was just expressing her gratitude for being able to just be the sister, because she trusts the organization to take care of her sister, to advocate for her sister, so that she doesn't have to get involved in some of those details that can carry a lot of stress with it. And she just kept saying, I just get to be the sister, and we have such a great bond, still to this day because of it. So it's really, really warmed my heart. Um, Plus, I got to spend some time with two of my favorite people that I don't get to see very often, even though, sad to say, we don't live that far away from each other, but our lives are very busy. And so it was just a really, really nice evening. It certainly filled my cup. Um, Another thing that I participated in last week, was so sweet. Have you ever known someone or known of someone for years, maybe even felt like forever, but you've never actually spoken to that person? No, maybe just me. Um, Whenever this person's name comes up in conversation, you instinctively know them, you know of them, but you don't actually know them personally. Well, for me, that's Carly. Carly and me, she and I, we have been living parallel lives since 2007, always in the same circles and on the same career trajectory, always hearing each other's names in conversation, yet somehow we never crossed paths until last Friday. We finally grabbed coffee, this really cute spot in Minneapolis called Honey and Rye Bake Shop. And if you're local and you want to go there, highly recommend going hungry because their pastries are absolutely delicious and they're huge. And so you want to bring your appetite when you go there. But I wanted to finally meet up with Carly face to face because she recently announced that she's starting her own professional coaching firm. And I was really eager to hear what inspired her to leave the corporate world. And I wanted to hear how things are going on her new adventure. I would say our conversation lasted over 3 hours. And honestly, our shared stories, our shared triumphs, our shared battle wounds could easily fill its own podcast episode. And so now that I think about it, well, I shouldn't say now that I think about it. I've already thought about it. We've already talked about it. Once I figure out how to record an interview, I promise I'm gonna share Carly's story, and introduce you to the company and the coaching that she is starting because I think it's going to be amazing. She's adding such a strong voice uh, to a very important conversation within the professional coaching world, and so very excited to bring that story to you. So once I figure out how to do that, stay tuned. Um, I can report I am officially all caught up on Bridgerton. Season two was fine. I liked the ending. It was okay. But I will admit the entire season was just okay for me. If the storyline for season two had been season one's storyline, then I probably would have stopped watching after like the third episode. I'm sorry, I mean no disrespect. But it just didn't catch my eye. It might have had something to do with the Duke being absent for the entire second season. Um, I don't know. So please don't send hate mail. I did enjoy part one of season three. I did finally get to witness the infamous carriage scene, and it did not disappoint. I did make sure to lower my volume though when I could tell that it was approaching. I didn't need my neighbors giggling at me any more than they probably already do. So I am looking forward to the second part of season three. Not sure how it's going to all ravel out. I think it's coming out soon from the time I'm recording this. So I'm not going to give any spoilers away. If you haven't started it yet or aren't caught up, make the sacrifice to your schedule and allow for some Netflix binging. I promise it's worth it. Okay. Whew, that was a lot. I can't think of any other LPs. So let's go ahead and dive into today's hack. As usual, I have my iced coffee by my side. I will warn you, Lulu Joy is here today. My little girl is recovering from an upset tummy and a spicy booty. Sorry for the TMI. I haven't slept much in the last week and a half. My brain is tired. My body is tired from my workout this morning, but I can report she is finally on the mend. So fingers crossed, she will be back to health very soon. My apologies in advance, though, if you hear any barking or growling in the background. Okay. For the rest of our time together, like I promised last week, today's topic will be a little lighter. We're going to spend the rest of our time together talking about the power of gratitude. But before we dive in, I want to start by asking everyone a question. Now, I can't see your face. I can't see your faces. So, no pressure. You can be honest. How many of you listening have ever paused to truly appreciate the good things in your life? It may sound cliche, I know, but how many of us actually stop to smell the roses? How often do any of us take a moment to pause and acknowledge what we are genuinely thankful for and then express those feelings of gratitude? It's okay. I can't see you. You can be honest. Ask yourself, how often am I doing this? About 6, 7 years ago, I was having a conversation with Amy. And the topic of the conversation actually had nothing to do with living a grateful life, but it actually ended up changing how I interacted with the people that make up my inner circle. We were discussing some rather hurt feelings I was having at that time and about how I felt some people in my life weren't giving me the same level of love and effort in return. Now, please forgive me. I, I don't remember exactly what was bothering me at that time. Clearly, clearly couldn't have been that big of a deal. But I am a true empath. I am a Cancer sign through and through. And I often joke that God gave me all the feels. I feel my emotions. I feel your emotions. I feel random people's emotions I see on TV. I am just connected to an energy level that can feel intense, really intense some days. Anyone else relate to that? I'm sure for my more analytical brains out there that that might seem really foreign to you, and that's okay. Being an empath is like kind of like being an antenna. That's honestly the best way I know how to describe it. We pick up everything. So before I learned how to manage my feelings and expectations, I spent my early years nursing a lot of hurt feelings. Imagine a love bank where it felt like I was making all the deposits, but receiving nothing in return. So I'm having this conversation with Amy, and I'm like, I feel like I do all these things for everyone around me. I'm basically the superhero of favors, right? But does anyone notice? No. And it didn't feel like anyone cared either. And I remember that was pissing me off. Amy broke it down really well for me. She told me that everyone has different abilities, and some people just don't have the same skill sets that we do. It's not that they're being mean or trying to hurt us. They simply have no idea we are even expecting them to act a certain way or to reciprocate. It's the classic yin and yang conundrum. So there I was, expecting something in return, something I would give without hesitation, but the people I was expecting these things from had no clue I was waiting for that type of response for them. And honestly, I don't mean this to be cruel, but they just didn't have the capacity to give me what I needed back the same way. I realized through my conversation with Amy that I had gaps in the bridges connecting me to my family and friends. Amy referred to them as shortcomings. And we all have shortcomings, things we are great at and things we are not so great at. And Amy pointed out that if we recognize someone's shortcoming and realize they simply can't return the love, the action, or the feelings the same way we do, then it's up to us, if we can see the gap, then it's up to us to meet them where they are and help fill in those gaps. Does that make sense? It's kind of like being the emotional handyman, patching up the bridge between us and them. So, this was the conversation that set me on the path to assessing not only my needs, what I wanted, what I was looking for, but also started evaluating the personalities around me. And while I was busy trying to identify these gaps, these shortcomings in my people, I actually ended up stumbling upon a lot of their strengths instead. And I started noticing that even if someone lacked in one area, they actually excelled in a lot of other areas. And I noticed the conversation I was having in my head starting to shift. Instead of focusing on what I lacked or what my family and friends didn't have for me, I began to see all the good things we did possess. So, in true Amy form, I began rephrasing my complaints in a way that gave me my power back, where I turned away from being the victim of my circumstance, stopped looking at problems through the lens of what other people weren't doing for me, and started finding ways I could meet my friends and family where they were. Communication played a key role. Instead of assuming my family and friends just intuitively understood my wants and needs, I learned how to articulate them clear. I started saying things like, I need this from you. I'm looking for that. And over time, I started to identify who within my circle would empathize with my struggles and offer me comfort in their response, and those who wouldn't. This realization, this aha moment, isn't me casting anyone in a negative light. Rather, by identifying those individuals that would give me the warm, fuzzy reaction or the tough love and candid advice, it helped me adjust my expectation. I no longer felt disappointed if someone couldn't provide the response I was seeking in the way I anticipated before. I will say it took me a few years to iron all of that out, to figure out which of my family and friends could help me based on the different levels of need that I had. And in the midst of me working through these pieces of my journey, I came across an article online that was very interesting. It recommended that within the first 30 minutes of waking up, we shouldn't look at our phones. Don't hop on any social media or read work emails that came in overnight, because then we are allowing other things, other stories, other people to dictate our immediate emotions first thing in the morning, which can then shape the rest of our day. Instead, the article recommended we spend the first few minutes after waking up, instead of looking at our phones, spend a few quiet moments to think about our life goals, and taking those first few minutes to think about all the things we are thankful for. The goal in doing this is so we start our day focused on positive things, which could then have unforeseen positive impacts throughout our day. I don't remember where I read this. It was a while ago, several years ago. So I'm sorry if I can't source the author for you exactly, but the concept is what I loved, this idea. And since I was already kind of doing this already, evaluating my close relationships and inadvertently identifying our strengths, I set a goal to start trying this out. And shocker, it's really hard. Since my phone is also my alarm, I will be the first to admit it's hard sometimes to not see a missed text message or email that came in overnight while quickly turning off my alarm before I can flip it back over and contemplate all the good things in my world. So this habit is still relatively new to me, even though I've legit been attempting it for the last 6, 7 years. I will say though, most mornings I do strive to make this part of my morning routine. At first, I started doing it because I liked the idea of not letting my phone or social media control me, right? I don't want to be one of those smartphone zombies. But I will admit, even though I'm not perfect at doing this, when I do start my mornings this way, I noticed it does make me feel good starting my day by reminding myself of all the good I do have. Thinking of all the good people that are surrounding me makes me feel happy. So while I was prepping for today's episode, I spent some time reading about living a grateful life. I caught up on world events by reading through a few newspapers, flipped through some magazines, watched the news, and talked with a few of my close family and friends. And it made me wonder how many of us make giving thanks a regular occurrence, a priority, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. Um, According to Harvard Health, gratitude helps us feel more positive, relish good experiences, improves our overall health, helps us deal with adversity better, and build stronger relationships. The effects of making living a grateful life can be a key ingredient in helping us improve our mental health, get a better night's sleep, and well, let's face it, it feels good when we're appreciated, right? So, why is it so hard to make this a habit or a priority? According to the Institute of Youth, gratitude demands reflection and stillness, qualities increasingly rare in our hectic, overstimulated daily routines. Even simple expressions like thank you or I appreciate you can transform our lives so positively, and yet finding these quiet moments needed for genuine reflection remains a struggle. And I'll be the first to admit it is hard sometimes to find those moments to reflect and stay still and think about those things. Um, I didn't intentionally set out to live a grateful life 6, 7 years ago. For me, it happened by accident. Remember, I initially was focusing on the gaps and shortcomings of my friends and family, but it was through these exercises that I started recognizing their strengths and realizing all the good that had been right in front of me this whole time. So, how often do any of us take a moment to pause and acknowledge what we are genuinely thankful for and then express those feelings of gratitude? It's okay if your answer a few moments ago was, well, not often enough, right? I will say you are certainly not alone. In our fast paced, all about me American culture, it is rare for us to stop and give thanks, at least beyond our primary school days, right? So after we graduate from 6th grade, how many of us were taught to reinforce the habit of reflecting on the people in our lives and expressing gratitude for their presence? Could just be me, but I'm not sure I was necessarily raised to do this. I vaguely recall discussing these topics occasionally in elementary school. Now, those memories are getting a little bit fuzzy with my old age, but I'm certain that they are there. But whatever lessons were taught about giving thanks back then, I can guarantee you they certainly were not reinforced throughout high school, college, or within my professional life. In the real world, we are so focused on ourselves, our needs, our wants, what we don't have, what we want to have, who did what to us, that the art of giving thanks for what we do have or for the good we do have sometimes can feel lost. If we had to pinpoint a time when society expects us to stop and give thanks, it's usually on Thanksgiving, right? The one holiday a year when we are expected to genuinely stop and give thanks. The word thanks is legit woven into the word Thanksgiving. Now, let's be honest for a moment. If we were having this conversation in person and I could see you, at the mere mention of the word Thanksgiving, I bet many of you would be rolling your eyes right about now, or maybe even feel your blood pressure start to rise just a little bit. And why is that? Well, because we all know that while the holiday was intended for us to stop, smell the roses, and say thank you, in today's modern world, giving thanks is probably the last item on the day's agenda, if it even makes it on there at all. Am I wrong? Let me paint a scenario for you, and you tell me how accurate it is. Um, when do you start planning for the holiday? If you're like me and my sister, we start discussing the holiday in September, early fall. We ask questions like, well, who is hosting this year? What should we do? Are we going to do a turkey trot? Who's making what? And then, of course, are we going to do any Black Friday shopping? Right? Those are kind of the pretty typical basic questions that probably most of us ask our family and friends when we're planning the day. Now, during these planning conversations, some of us might notice our stress levels beginning to rise just a little bit. How many of us stress over whether, say, a parent will be joining? Or what if both parents will be joining? There's always that one family member who never responds to an RSVP, and then yet, surprise, they show up, empty handed, of course. Doesn't help clear a single plate after dinner, and yet expects to take all the leftovers home when they leave. And anyone have that one person who shows up and only talks about the most heated, divisive topics imaginable, making everyone else play the fun filled game of, can we please change the topic? Which is usually followed by a few people sharing gifs of people jumping off cliffs or banging their heads against a wall. Can anyone else relate to this? Just me? Uh, I'd be interested to know if anyone is sitting in their house or their car right now thinking, well, my family's always so happy to get together. I don't know what this girl's talking about. Well, if that is the case, then pin a rose on your nose. You are one of the few out there who has never had to stress over this holiday. Congrats. For most of us, though, except for maybe that one person, most of us probably have found that even on the one day where it's expected to be all about giving thanks, like I said a few moments ago, being thankful during Thanksgiving has evolved to the point where actually giving thanks is so far down on the day's agenda, if, like I said, it even makes it onto the to do list at all. We've all seen those Black Friday clips on the news, right? The ones filled with so much irony, people punching each other for a TV or a blender just mere hours after the Thanksgiving meal ended. Again, the day we have the meal we are supposed to be giving thanks for. So even if your family and guests do not bring the stress to the day, the world around us doesn't necessarily reflect the spirit of the holiday either anymore. So if the one day we are supposed to give thanks isn't really a time when we actually stop and give thanks anymore, well, let me ask again. When do we stop and give thanks? When was the last time you told someone they made you feel thankful, grateful, and blessed? I think this is why I really like the idea of spending the first few minutes of the day reflecting on the good things in my life. Instead of needing to carve out extra time into our day for reflection, we are naturally lying there, stretching and adjusting our eyes to the light. It's the perfect moment to pause and contemplate. Our beds have us as a captive audience, making it an ideal time to appreciate all that's around us and helps us set a positive tone for the day ahead. I have found that by taking the time to regularly recognize the good already in my life and appreciating the people helping me make my life better just by being a part of it brings me immediate joy. Making a habit of sharing gratitude can also significantly increase our happiness and positively impact those around us, around our communities, or even around the world. So my challenge this week is, as always, start small, baby step it. Pick one day this week. Just try to do this one time in the morning. When you turn that alarm off, try really, really hard not to scroll through your phone or hop on social media or check your emails. Instead, spend 3 minutes, okay? Just 3 minutes right when you wake up to think about the people closest to you. Start with those individuals who make up your immediate inner circle first. How do these people make you feel? Are you happy they are in your life? Are you happy for their love, their friendship? Now, if you feel comfortable, After you have those names and faces swirling around your barely woken up mind, then grab your phone and start your day by sending them each a note, a text message that just simply says, "Hi, it's me. I know this is out of the blue, but you were on my mind, and I want to tell you I am thankful, grateful, and blessed to have you in my life. Hope you have a great day." That's it. That's my challenge. Spend 3 minutes, one day this week or next week, instead of looking at your phone right away. Start by doing this. Think about all the good things that are going on in your life. Reflect on the people that make you happy in your life. And if you feel comfortable, start your day by sending them a note saying that you are thankful, grateful, and blessed to have them in your life. Give it a try. See how it makes you feel. Okay, I think I've babbled on long enough. We will add to this next week. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, has an amazing week. And I want to say, for those that are listening and giving me a chance, I am thankful, grateful, and blessed. You are giving my little podcast a chance. And I look forward to our next chat. Peace out, friends.